Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, the show about ways to stay competitive in a changing market, break through business plateaus, and respond to the changing expectations of today's customers. Your host, Jess Dewell, is a rapid growth entrepreneur, consultant, and business advocate with a 20-year track record of business excellence. She candidly discusses how to achieve your growth strategy and realize your company's unfulfilled potential. Now, here's Jess.
You're in the right place for conversations about current needs that we as business leaders face. This is specifically and importantly a closer look at technology, changing customer expectations, and how quickly markets are adapting and maneuvering. This program is about what it means to reach our short-term goals while we increase our confidence in our long-term positioning. This is program 217, Business Book Must-Reads. Now, I have some amazing people here with us today because, I really wanted to do the show all by myself. And Scott said, Jess, there's some other people that could do this with you that would bring another point of view. And I said, of course, that's what the Voice of Bold Business Radio is all about, is perspective. So here we are, and we have a panel. Today's panelists include Miles Austin, the web tools guy, who is a sales and marketing speaker and trainer. He works with companies to blast through tech difficulties. These are companies who want to increase their sales through acquiring new customers. Michael Coffey's here, lead digital strategist with Ardea Coaching. He serves as a guide to small business owners and entrepreneurs in a way that helps them narrow the overwhelming sea of choices to get the right actions tailored with the right business goals. And also with us is Michael Bernstein. He's the lead account executive with T-Mobile, and he has demonstrated a history of adapting and being dependable in changing environments to maximize efficiencies for both his customers and his peers. He's a problem solver that likes to listen and ask questions in an effort to get to an effective solution. So everybody, welcome today. Miles,
Yes.
What's a business book that you've read recently, and why is it important for us to read it today?
Well, Jess, I read a lot. It's kind of what keeps me going. And I'm actually in the last maybe 50 pages of a book that it's really been a big impact for me, called The Power of Moments, Why Certain Experiences Have Extraordinary Impact, written by a couple guys that I've read most all of their books, Chip Heath and Dan Heath. They've done a great job with Made to Stick and Switch, etc. So I always like to read what they're up to and what's going on. In this book, you're going to explore why certain brief experiences can jolt us and elevate us and change us, and how we learn to create such extraordinary moments in our lives and in our work. Human lives are all endlessly variable. Our most memorable positive moments are dominated by four key elements: elevation, insight, pride, and connection. And so the question that this book really drives into when they look at those four is, what if a teacher could design a lesson that he knew his students would remember 20 years later? What if a manager knew how to create an experience that would delight her customers? The book delves into some fascinating mysteries of experience, like why we tend to remember the best or the worst moments of an experience as well as the last moment, and we forget all the rest. Why we feel most comfortable when things are fairly certain, but we feel most alive when they're not. Readers are able then to go through these things and understand these defining moments. And they use an example in the book that I found just fascinating. And they talk about and it kind of brings home the point. They talk about a hotel in LA called the Magic Castle. And the Magic Castles is one of the top 3 rated hotels in California. And that's pretty amazing if you think about it, because they are on top of the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills. They're on top of the Ritz-Carlton in LA. And the Magic Castle's reviews are stunning. Out of 2,900 plus reviews on TripAdvisor, 93% of their guests rated them excellent or very good. And there's really something odd, which is when you go look at that ranking and you flip through the photos online, you'd conclude that this is not one of the best hotels in LA. It looks like, and it actually was, a converted hotel from the 50s. So there's a little, almost a backyard-sized pool in the back, etc. So it's also not really cheap, even though it is in LA. It's comparable in price to a Marriott or a Hilton or something like that. So here's what happens. When you go there and you're a guest, they start with a cherry red phone, and it's mounted to a wall near the pool. Now think about this, right? Picture the setting, that bright yellow hotel, kind of a little bit not what you'd think is a top-notch hotel. And there's a cherry red phone on the wall by the pool. You pick it up, someone answers. Hello, Popsicle Hotline, and you place an order. And minutes later, a staffer wearing white gloves delivers a cherry, an orange, or a grape popsicle to you at poolside on a silver tray for free. Then they do the same thing with the snack bar. They have Kit Kats and root beer and Cheetos. All can be ordered as well up in your room, no cost. They have something that I found just amazing. You can drop unlimited amount of laundry off in the morning, and that evening it's in your room waiting, wrapped in butcher paper with a piece of twine around it and a twig of lavender. So, you know, I mean, I don't know about you, but my first child didn't get that kind of pomp and circumstance when the doctor handed it over. So that's what the book's about. It helps us understand that we all can control and create these little moments that the authors talk about, really covering everything from elevation to insight. And as usual, the authors, the Heath brothers, have fantastic stories that help drill home the points.
Michael Coffey, what's the best business book that you've read recently, and what are some of the takeaways?
The one I'll talk about today is Strengths-Based Leadership. The subtitle is Great Leaders, Teams, and Why People Follow by Tom Rath and the Gallup organization. And before I talk too much about the book, I should start off by saying that, at least on my mom's side of the family, we have an inordinate number of teachers and business owners. In fact, all of the cousins, or almost all of the cousins, fall into one or the other category. And for the last couple of years, this work, both this book and some of the previous ones, have been, you know, Thanksgiving dinner conversation, because it's useful in business, it's useful teaching. The previous works are Now Discover Your Strengths and StrengthsFinder 2.0. Both of the previous ones were looking primarily at strengths from sort of a personal development standpoint. In other words, how can I be more effective? But strengths-based leadership expands that material with newer research in terms of how an individual's strengths work in concert with the strengths of other people. And one of the big takeaways is that you as an individual are best served by doubling down on what you're good at. In other words, don't be well-rounded. Whatever you do, don't try to be well-rounded, because the things that you're good at, so get better at those things. And the things that you're not good at, you're going to put an enormous amount of effort into trying to get better at those things and not see much from that effort. On the flip side, however, a team should try to have strengths spread across a number of domains. They kind of take the 30-some strengths that they talk about and divide it into executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And so if you have people that have strengths in each of those 4 areas, then your team is going to be more effective, but you as an individual stick with what you're good at. Another useful piece of the book is a review of research that Gallup did on followers. And they rightly point out that, that practically everything published about leadership is people asking leaders, what do you think leadership is about? Right? W. Edwards Deming pointed out that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So they went out and they interviewed more than 10,000 US adults and asked, who's an influential leader that you follow and why? They did a bunch of data analysis on all of the answers. and found that grouped into 4 clusters of answers. So followers follow leaders who build trust, who show compassion, who provide stability, and who create hope. The remainder of the book takes each of the strengths that you can identify by taking the test that you get with the book and going through and saying, okay, for each of those 4 things, this is something that if you have this strength, this is how you do each of those things. This is how you build trust. This is how you show compassion. This is how, someone with that strength. All 4 categories that, my own strengths, my own suggestions, had something that was similar to, oh, you should make recommendations for good resources for people because that's like super tied into. So I'm literally putting this book into practice by being here on this show today. So
I love it. That's so great. Thanks, Michael. Michael Bernstein, what's a business book that you've read recently that is worth all of us taking the time to stop and also dig into?
So the book is Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. Overall, obviously, it's a book about prospecting and just the sales cycle and where typical people can get off track. And what this book basically shows is that when you drill everything down, and especially now with all this technology that's out. People in sales, generally outside sales or any type of sales where you're prospecting and you're building a base, you tend to look for shortcuts. You tend to, utilize technology in certain ways and end up, wasting more time trying to figure out the technology, instead of actually making calls. But it goes into just, the mindsets of, what a fanatical prospector is. Enthusiastic, competitive, confident, relentless, thirsty for knowledge, adaptive, very efficient typically. It goes into saying how, there really is no shortcut in sales. It's a strict numbers game. One thing that I took away that I think a lot of people can kind of relate to, it's called the 30-day rule. Basically, once you figure out your closing ratio from calls or meetings to actually, gaining clients, say it's, for every 10 calls, you gain 1 client. Once you win a sale, a lot of people just naturally kind of either sit back or, get compliments of the sale or, celebrate the win. And in actuality, when you win a sale and if you really want to grow your business, you have to not only add 1 prospect to the pipeline, but you have to add, in this situation would be 9 prospects to the pipeline just to get that next sale. So, it basically shifts. It basically shifted my view on, when to turn on, when to turn on, the button, if you will, never to sit back, and kind of wait for things to happen. And, the anatomy of a sales slump. Generally, people will think, oh, maybe there's issues with closing or, writing a business proposal or, many other things where it's more of a current factor. But, from what this book suggests and in my agreement, it's more of a prospecting. It's more of a prospecting issue. If you don't have a good pipeline, if you don't constantly prospect every single day, no matter if it's a good day or if it's a bad day, you can find yourself in a slump, and you can start questioning yourself of, well, I'm having issues closing. Why is that? And then, negative issues can come, and, you can create a situation where, you're kind of desperate, to get sales, and that can be viewed on the phone. People can hear that in your voice. People can sense that. So it's just the overall sales cycle. And just the focus that people are tending to get away from, just continue to prospect every day, no matter what. And, that's ultimately the solution to, many salespeople's issues.
So I've written down a question for each one of you that pertains to the book that you've shared, and I'd like for each of you to answer that. Miles, Going back to the power in the moment, what's going on in your life or in your business, or what interests you about experience and the importance of its core need in the business sales function?
The field is more and more crowded every day. Online, there's new websites, there's new tools, there's new approaches, there's new authors, on and on and on. It's very crowded. And I think the challenge is to stand out from the crowd. And an even bigger challenge for many of us, some of us on the call and otherwise, if you're a small entrepreneurial company versus a big T-Mobile behemoth, how do you compete with those, quote, big kids, right? And so the moments for me, the book and the whole concept was, how can that little guy, that little hotel in Los Angeles beat the biggest, most well-financed properties in the world? And the point was, it doesn't take a lot of magic. It doesn't take a lot of money to stand out, differentiate, and win the hearts and the emotional appeal from the people you're there to serve. They know who they're going to serve. And there'll be some people, probably the Kardashians, won't be showing up there. They don't care. They want the volume of people that are coming there on vacation, and they know that the room decor isn't going to keep them there or dazzle them. But you know what? The popsicle hotline, the free laundry service, those are the things that are delivered in a way, they don't just do those things. They do it in a memorable, substantially differentiated way from anyone else that they compete with. And guess what? Their whole premise was, at the end of the day, what do we remember about our vacation? Not that whole middle part, when you got there, when you left, and if there was some catastrophic or major event sometime during that time. The rest of it we forget about.
Michael, as a teacher and a sharer and a resourcer, what are you focused on right now in your leadership? What skill or area are you developing to complement your natural strengths?
One of my cousins is developing a Center for Creativity and Leadership. He's working on it. It's super secret, so I won't say anything else. One of the things that I did because of a conversation that I had with her is I started building my own personal leadership manual. So I started with all of the specific recommendations from this book. These are things that are leadership tasks or approaches that I can take that I know tie into my strengths. I'm an introvert, so there's a lot of leadership sorts of things that involve talking with people, and ew. But if I can connect someone with a resource, that provides the kind of value, builds trust or whatever. And so I'm starting to go out and collect examples of, oh, this person is like me. There's something there. And collecting those things to make my leadership manual so that I can then ignore all of the other people, let them do their thing. But
I liked ignore. It laser focused.
Right.
Laser focused. I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Mike. So
Yes.
how are you going to take the principles from this book about improving prospecting into your daily activities?
I've already kind of incorporated it, but I just set in my calendar every single day, a set time. Usually it's the same time, between either 9 or 10 or at some point in the late afternoon, to dedicate an hour, no matter what my day is like, to prospect. And we can all get kind of busy with our calendars and whatever breaks we have in our calendars. You can go grab a coffee or go, call a friend. And I'm not saying that those things aren't needed to kind of shut down the brain for a minute here and recharge. But just to set in your calendar as important as a meeting with a top customer is that hour that you can kind of give back to yourself and prospect. Because, no matter what, it cannot hurt. And when you call and when you prospect, so many different things are found out. The best prospecting that I've seen, once I have some facts just cold calling and looking for facts, in my opinion, is not, is not the right way to go. So I try and avoid that. But once I have enough facts, I build a list. I go up to my desk or wherever I am and treat it like it's, like it's a meeting. I turn my phone, for the most part, I shut off notifications. I don't want to be bothered, with anything for that hour. And it's just a head down and grind. And, matter if going in, I was having a good day or bad day, it just always, for me, kind of brightens up my day and makes it feel like it's, just run efficiently. When I do it in the morning, I just set myself up for success, I feel. And I start calling with the most likely yeses, or, the deals that I think are going to close the soonest, to kind of build my self-esteem. When you have good call, meeting. And then when you call someone blind, the confidence that you have, you've already won. And then all of a sudden, that's when it takes it to another level. Your confidence and energy in the call, later on in that prospecting hour, sometimes are the biggest wins, because you've already felt like you've won. So that's kind of how I incorporate it, and it's a set stone in my calendar. No matter who has to call. Well, I do allow my wife to get through, but that's about it. And outside of that, it's been working really well.
There's a few threads that I found as I'm listening to you talk about these books. One is a desire to continue learning for our own personal benefit and our professional development. And they may be in opposite orders depending on the book we're reading. They're both present. They're skills we need to learn, whether it's creativity, whether it's self-reflection, whether it's how we use our time. It doesn't matter. It's all about skill acquisition and honing those skills. And so I'm curious, did you see any themes that came up as you've each been talking so far?
Every one of us is reading something, which first of all is unique in our society as it is.
Yes.
We're reading a book, hard copy or Kindle, doesn't matter, right? We're reading. So I think that says we're investing in our career and our ability to grow, whether it's business or personal life. It's important. I think the winners learn all of their life.
Right. Giving back to yourself and always trying to learn and pick techniques off of peers and just be open-minded. A lot of times if you think that you have an amazing call, or just so good in meetings, watch yourself on video, and things will kind of come up. So no matter how successful you are or think you can be, I think the need to keep the ears open and, the radar on, to continue to adapt and try different styles with different personalities that come across you on a daily basis, will help. And I talk to everyone. I try and pick up and learn something from any situation, whether it's personal or business. Just try and gain something from anyone.
I just have to know, do you all run your calendars like Mike does? Okay, will you tell us how?
Yeah, I do a lot of things that are sort of old school. I do a handwritten with a fountain pen, but I actually get enjoyment out of using my pen and my paper, just the act of it. And so that I do it in a different way for a different reason.
How about you, Miles? Anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, my calendar is a guide.
Yeah.
I've kind of come to the realization that I will seek opportunities whenever and wherever they come, and I will make a mental decision. Is that a A1 or a B2 or a C3, whatever it might be? I'll make those categorizations. In my world, anyway, it's different for all of us, obviously, but in my world, I have to be able to move quickly. Speed is money. And too many times, I think, if I'm too rigid, or look, in fact, I'll give you a perfect example. The old days of going back and forth playing phone tag to set an appointment. That is a huge waste of my time anyway. It's very unproductive. And I used to use tools like Calendly and other things that help pick dates and times. That's all. When someone wants to ask a question, have an engagement, or do something productive with me, they now have an ability through messenger, chat, or some other way to go do it. And I can stop pretty much whatever I'm doing, unless it's sleep, and even then, and go jump in and engage and be productive and give them and deliver results that they're expecting me to give, which again goes back to creating something memorable that they're not going to get from most people. To say, look, I can't do it until next Tuesday at 10:30, to me is just, it's a deal killer.
I agree. And I actually struggle with that. When people want an entire hour of my time and they want to sit down and talk, I would like to give it to them. My account, to do that, people have to go out like a month to have a sit down with me. And I don't like that. I don't like the way that it feels. I don't like the way that it comes across. And I would prefer somebody just go, hey, I have a question, and send it my way. Or, hey, do you do this? And send it my way. And with whatever fashion that they chose. I would much rather be able to be responsive than that structured. Now, there's a lot of things that require structure as well. And there's also things like in my calendar that I can't plan for. I sit down and I'm solving problems and I'm grappling with people and asking them questions. And sometimes it takes 5 minutes to get the answer to a larger problem to walk away and think about for a while. And sometimes it takes 5 hours. And sometimes you just don't know what that is. And that's the other reason my schedule goes out so far, because I block the most amount of time necessary for each client that might be needed, which means unless you're going to get me in the stream of things, you're going to get me later. Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, but it is something I struggle with. And that would be something that I know it's a skill I'm working on, is how do I adapt for all the modalities that we still see and expect and still come across as approachable and responsive. And I think that that's an interesting thing that every single one of us face.
I like efficiency and effectiveness and, things going by at a quick pace and getting things done and all that kind of stuff. But with my clients, oftentimes they want hand-holding. So I'd love to, I'm thinking about hiring you, but I need to sit down and chat with you face to face so that and I'll often say, well, that I do have clients that I've never met in person, like that works. Just in case they haven't even conceived of that. But then usually they'll be like, well, okay, that's fine, but I'd still like to sit down with you and have a conversation. And I'm like, okay, great. That's how, So.
Yeah, I say, Michael, for me, that's an example for me, what I've learned. Again, we're all different businesses and different needs. That's where, for me, that's a qualifier. If they have to meet face-to-face, I'm out. I'm not your guy.
Uh-huh.
And again, that's no disrespect to them.
Right.
Literally, while we're talking here, I got a beep on, and it was a Skype, because you have to have everything. I don't use Skype very often. And she said they want to go live with their website. They wanted it before the end of the week. I just gave her an answer, said I'll talk to you at 3:15, my time, which is 20, 30 minutes from now. So we'll go get it done, and I'll have it off my list. Because back, I think, to Mike's point, I have goals. Don't get me wrong. I have goals that I need to accomplish. But I found if I'm so rigid from my perspective in what goes where, I'm going to struggle all day long from a stress standpoint, because I can't get it all done. None of us can. But if I know that I have to do X, Y, and Z, income, new client, whatever the measurements are, the metrics that we have in our lives, as long as I know those, they're crystal clear and they're drilled in, I'll move things around, playing chess, words with friends, whatever it might be, kind of an analogy, to make it happen, right? That's just me, though. Again, we all are different in that way.
Well, but there's a competitive advantage in knowing your market. And so that's a really big deal in terms of, and look at it right here. What works for one of us doesn't work for another of us. And there's 4 of us in this conversation, and we all do it enough different. How about you, Mike? What do you've been saying, I wanted to check in with you and be like, do you have more to say there?
I was just kind of agreeing, obviously, with what they're saying, but ultimately, it's for me, it's just a combination of structure, setting priorities as far as what needs to get done. These 3 things need to get done today. These 3 people have to be called today. Let's make sure that gets done. Adaptability, the ability to just in a quick fashion, adapt, give information to someone, and then, get right back to kind of what you were doing, if you're able to do that. And then something that, hasn't really been touched yet, but just my mindset is every customer, has a different way of how they want to do business, right? And some of us have said, we just want to do business in the way that we want to do. If they want to meet face to face, that client's not for me, which, everyone's different. I'm somewhat like that too, in agreement. But just to know the customer, I try and identify their personality type, very early on, either on the sales call or meeting. I try and get an understanding of when is a good time to call them, what type of communication they like. Do they like text? Do they like Facebook Messenger, phone, email? And I try and mimic that type of communication. That to me can build relationships, quickly. And because you're doing business in a way that you can adapt the way that they want to do business, you can get to your end goal quicker.
The question is, what makes it bold to continue to read, to invest in yourself?
The greatest gift my mom ever gave me was the love of reading, period. No other thing comes close. And so for people that don't read, whether it's online, again, I don't care what format, but if you're not reading, you're not learning, you're not growing, and you're eventually going to get passed by everyone else that is.
I heard a thing that was attributed to a Chinese proverb. Learning is like paddling in a river. Not to advance is to fall back. In order to make progress anywhere, you need to constantly be learning. And I too, it was my grandmother that gave me the the love of learning.
So I'd say one line that is in the book, Fanatical Prospecting, that kind of sums up in many ways my view, is the more you prospect, the luckier you get. There's a tangibility between the way I feel when I prospect and the way that I don't. Some people can just classify that as luck. Oh, he seems to always get, the better deals, or, the customer seems to, buy what he's selling more often. And it's not that I'm luckier. It's just that I'm more prepared. And I have the ability to build a funnel where I feel like I don't need any sale. I'm not desperate for any sale. And the inverse happens, right? When you're not expecting something, it comes. When you want something to come, it won't come. And that's just kind of the mentality. So just that one line to me, explains the book to a T.
Michael, I think you just described my dating life.
Well, what's funny is, because I've been talking to this book, I have a bunch of friends and whatnot that we like to brainstorm, and that came up, and it comes up a lot. And, it's funny to say that, but there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities between just relationships with people and building a better business. Specifically for me, in a sales cycle. If I want something real bad, it's going to be hard to get. And if I don't want something, sometimes it just falls into your lap, and then you get more confidence, going forward.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen that listen. Now, what I want you to do before you sign off is check out the program notes. voiceofboldbusiness.com/P217. That's voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 217. You can also search the site for business book must reads. All right, what's next? You're still listening. So rate this program. You're watching. Rate this program. Leave us a comment. #VBB Radio. Reach out to each of these three wonderful gentlemen, because here's the deal. Not only do you may have questions about the books that they've suggested, which will be in the program notes. You may also be like, hey, because you liked that book, come read this book too. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's make a list. Let's help each other and be a resource so that we can continue to invest in ourselves, so that we can continue to develop our leadership, so that we can figure out ways to augment what we're good at and get better, yet complement it just enough to be able to expand and grow into the other areas that we want, that we need to see improvement in. I guess there's a want and a need there, right? All right. So take it from me, take it from Miles, Michael, and Mike. We want to know. And please be ready to share your business book must read.
The voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. When you aren't seeing the growth results you want, it's time to get an outside perspective. To discuss your specific situation around growth strategy, work with us. Visit voiceofboldbusiness.com and click Find Out More. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.